In Baltimore City, homicides are down, but do people feel any safer? Why some say they're scared to even walk out their own front doors.
They know what they're doing. They know that if they commit a crime, they're going to more than likely go home.
And questions surrounding how the Department of Juvenile Services decides which juvenile gets released.
Maryland Senate race is starting to take shape. The candidates vying for Senator Ben Cardin's seat.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Homicides are trending down this year in Baltimore City, yet many people are telling Fox 45 they don't feel any safer.
Homicides are down. That doesn't mean people aren't getting shot and stabbed. It just means that people aren't dying.
And good evening, I'm Vincent Hill.
And I'm Maxine Stryker. Thanks so much for joining us. These safety concerns come as other crimes throughout Baltimore City continue to rise. It's the first time since 2015 Baltimore City will likely end the year under 300 homicides. According to police, 229 people have been killed this year compared to 289 last year at this time.
We are on track in Baltimore to see us under 300 homicides for the first time in 9 years.
As Mayor Brandon Scott touts the decline, some residents say they don't feel any safer calling Baltimore home.
We don't go anywhere anymore. You're scared to death to step out your door.
According to the latest Goucher poll, nearly half of voters feel crime has gotten worse in their neighborhood over the past year.
People are scared to come out of their home in the middle of broad daylight. That is insane.
While less people have been killed,
Homicides are down. That doesn't mean people aren't getting shot and stabbed. It just means that people aren't dying.
other crime, including auto thefts, are on the rise. This year, more than 9,300 have been reported citywide.
We're so scared we're moving because this is the fourth time our car has been either vandalized, broke into, or stolen. I've been here for 5 years, but I can't live like this. I haven't slept since that day.
And young criminals continue to terrorize citizens, unchecked, often with no consequences.
The horrificness of youth crime is what's scaring a lot of people. The fact that it's so brazen.
Political analyst John Deedy says, while yes, homicides are down significantly, fear among Baltimoreans still exists.
I think that when you have a juvenile situation out of control, it creates more fear among people because the fact that they know these are young kids and they'll more likely be more reckless because everyone under 18 thinks they're invincible.
And Sergeant Betsy Smith with the National Police Association agrees.
As we get a handle on homicides, we have got to further that in Baltimore and take a hard look at crimes committed by people under the age of 18.
And as Maxine mentioned, auto thefts are on the rise. On Wednesday, the Baltimore City Council held a hearing to address the ongoing car theft crisis.
Police say more than 38% of those arrested are juveniles, many of them arrested multiple times for the same crime.
Yeah, but only 2/3 of those suspects are reported to the Department of Juvenile Services, and only 5% end up serving time in a facility. The rest receive probation, have charges pending, or have their charges dismissed. The City Council was critical of those numbers, saying change isn't possible without accountability.
Baltimore City, we are failing our young people. And if we're not getting the job right, and they see that we're acting a fool, and we're not taking them seriously, they're not going to take us seriously.
We are having a crisis around young people that are committing very violent crimes, being arrested, and then not being fully held accountable.
And meanwhile, the Department of Juvenile Services explaining how they decide what offenders should be released after committing a crime.
The third decision that we could make is to release a young person to the care and custody of the guardian, and that is if it is a low-risk young person.
And tonight, many are telling Fox 45 they feel that data that the department is using is outdated, leading to repeat young violent offenders back on the streets of Baltimore.
Inside City Hall this week.
So we're going to do the presentation. Okay.
A presentation by DJS Deputy Secretary Lisa Gary about how the department determines whether to detain or release a juvenile.
And we complete what is called a detention risk assessment instrument. That is an instrument that we've been using for the last 12 years.
A decision essentially made by the push of a button.
Once we apply the detention risk assessment instrument, we get a sense of a youth's low, moderate, or high risk of failing to appear for court and or picking up a new offense.
But what's being considered a low risk?
I am deeply concerned.
Concerning all the way from City Hall.
We're seeing it in our neighborhoods. We're seeing it in all of our communities around carjackings.
To the streets of Baltimore City.
To get driven home? They drove them home after.
This woman viciously beaten by a 12 and 14-year-old. Arrested and released 2 hours later.
I should feel safe enough to walk home.
Even the 14-year-old's mother.
I don't know, I don't know what to do with him.
Calling out DJS's decision-making.
I think that some issues need to be addressed as far as dealing with the juvenile services system, because I've been going back and forth trying to get the help that I need for him.
And she's not the only parent.
The second time that he got in trouble for stealing a car and nothing happened, you know what I mean? I wanted to leave him there so he can learn his lesson.
Saying the department's risk assessment tool may need some calibrating.
It was validated in, I believe, 2015 and updated twice since that time.
An outdated way of thinking, many feel has been figured out by those it's meant to oversee.
They know what they're doing. They know that if they commit a crime, they're going to more than likely go home.
A juvenile get locked up right now, he comes straight home back to wherever he was at.
Earlier this week, we told you about a 12-year-old arrested for armed robbery who was released within hours. Just 2 days later, he was arrested again for the same offense. And those aren't the only problems facing the Department of Juvenile Services. The agency continues to face scrutiny about how well they manage young offenders. Earlier this year, the state attorney general found problems with educational services, conditions, boredom, and unsafe staffing levels. There's also questions about the effectiveness of the GPS monitoring system. This summer, this teen involved in the Brooklyn Day mass shooting was on home monitoring when that shooting took place. In August, FOX45 found 103 youth were under monitoring, but just 14 staff members assigned to supervise them.
They're not complying with the terms that have been imposed, and they will continue to think that their actions are just not all that serious.
Issues with home monitoring were also brought up at a public safety hearing earlier this week, with many lawmakers and state FOP President Clyde Boatwright calling for more oversight.
In some cases, they are on the electronic monitoring, but as we talked about with Brooklyn Day and all of this, and I don't want to highlight that situation, but two people that were taken into custody both had ankle monitors on, and they both had guns, and they were shooting at each other or shooting at other people. So they were back in the community with an electronic monitoring system to reoffend. So where is the follow-up?
Parents have been coming to FOX45 for months calling for their kids to be held accountable. In September, a mother told FOX45 her 14-year-old daughter was out of control and wouldn't stop stealing cars despite being on an ankle monitor.
They need to stop making excuses. They need to start locking these kids up. They need to change the laws. She started getting arrested, and when she get arrested, they let her know they can't do anything. They can't detain her. She's underage. She can't be charged, or whatever the case may be.
And last month, the Baltimore father said his 16-year-old son was caught trying to steal a motorcycle. His son already on probation for a stolen car last year. Now the father is worried for his son's life if he doesn't get help.
This day, I'm still fighting, trying to get him help. And everybody's like, oh, well, just deal with it. What, deal with his death? This juvenile reform incentive? These kids ain't learning no lessons. What are they thinking? Do they see what's going on? Don't talk. We need to do something now. It's an epidemic. These kids are out of control.
And FOX45 has also heard from more than a dozen top prosecutors expressing concern about the current juvenile justice laws. They represent about 5.4 million people, about 87% of the state's population. They tell us the laws leave their hands tied when it comes to holding young people accountable.
Some of the problems is that even some of our felony charges, we're seeing an uptick in motor vehicle thefts. Those would not be considered a crime of violence. So anyone from 10 to 12 who gets involved in something like that doesn't come to us. We can't charge them. I mean, essentially, if they are found to have committed the crime, the police just have to drive them home. I mean, that's really all we can do.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I understand the legislators and the recent legislation that has passed. They don't want youth to grow up and have criminal convictions or to be part of the criminal justice system. But really what we're seeing is just delaying this delinquent behavior that turns into adult criminal behavior. And we need to get to these youth sooner.
Do you think that lawmakers will really take this seriously when session returns?
Yeah, I believe that lawmakers, again, we're all partners. I do believe they're acting in good faith.
Maryland's Senate race is starting to take shape. Earlier this year, Senator Ben Cardin announced that he would retire after serving in the seat since 2007.
Fox 45's Taylor Stewart is looking at the candidates vying for that top spot.
The Democratic primary for Maryland Senate starting to take shape.
I think it's going to be an interesting race. You have demographics versus money.
Democrats Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks and Congressman David Trone making a pitch for the seat held by longtime Senator Ben Cardin, who announced last May he would not seek re-election. Former Maryland Attorney General Doug Gansler says it looks like the primary could come down to just two things.
As endorsements start to fly in on both sides, and just the amount of money that David Trone has put up front is going to really deter other people.
The Baltimore Sun reporting Congressman Trone already spent nearly $10 million on his campaign bid. He's also received support from longtime Congressman Dutch Ruffensperger. But the demographic of this vote may sway in favor of PG County Executive Angela Alsobrooks.
She has the additional advantage of being African-American. The Democratic primary vote is now over 40% black. She's also vying to be the only black woman senator in the United States. So she'll have a lot of support from Emily's List and other women's groups.
Also, Brooks securing endorsements from Congressman Kwasi Mfume and the state's top Democrat, Governor Wes Moore.
Angela will have the party apparatus behind her, but David will have a lot of, like I said, money and enough endorsements to say, she's got some, I've got some. And remember, David Trone got the teachers union.
But given historically low voter turnout during the primaries,
I think the issues will matter more in the general election, where you're going to see sort of the issues of abortion and versus wokeness still on the ballot.
And a third contender, Republican candidate General John Teichart, making his pitch for the seat that has for decades been occupied by Democrats.
Unless the Republicans had a marquee candidate with a big name.
Gansler does not see that changing in the upcoming general election, but a lot can change between now and May of next year. Taylor Stewart, Fox 45 News.
New tonight, Baltimore County Police are asking for help identifying this suspect in connection to a fatal hit and run in Woodlawn. Police say the crash happened back on July 3rd around noon in the area of Dogwood and Rolling Roads. The female suspect there on the left of your screen was driving a burgundy or maroon SUV when that crash happened. Anyone with information on the suspect or the crash is asked to call police or submit an anonymous tip through Metro Crime Stoppers.
Fox 45 continues our coverage on the war in the Middle East happening now. Constant bombardment is keeping staff and patients from evacuating Gaza's largest hospital. That's according to Doctors Without Borders. The Hamas-controlled health ministry in Gaza is reporting that more than 100 bodies were seen wrapped in blankets on the ground within the hospital complex. The ministry also claiming that 3 newborn babies have died in the attack. Israel's military acknowledged clashes with Hamas operatives near the hospital, but has denied firing at or seizing the medical center.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10, Maryland's Attorney General warning of misleading claims made by an at-home rape kit test. Fox 45 is investigating the concerns surrounding Leda Health.
Millions of people today celebrating Veterans Day across the U.S. The Montana nonprofit offering mental health help to active duty service members this year.
And after the break, Fox 45 News is demanding answers more than 2 weeks after an FBI raid at a Safe Streets location. The new statement from LifeBridge Health and why it's raising even more questions. The FBI continues to remain tight-lipped about its investigation involving Safe Streets.
But as Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost explains from the Accountability Desk, the latest probe proves the need for more transparency surrounding the program.
As the federal investigation continues involving at least 3 Safe Streets workers from the Bel Air Edison location, I want to explain how this investigation relates to the questions that we've been asking for more than 2 years. Mayor Brandon Scott, Monzi leaders, and the 2 nonprofits, Catholic Charities and LifeBridge, those are the 2 running the 10 different Safe Streets locations. They've all refused to tell us who the Safe Streets employees are. However, we've been able to identify a few of the employees, but that's only because of court records and tips from you at home, not because these leaders have been transparent. This is Ronald Alexander. Now, this photo came from a federal case file, so the quality isn't the best, but you can see him wearing a Safe Streets t-shirt, and he's carrying what federal prosecutors say was a bag of drugs. Now, according to plea agreements and these court documents that we obtained, Ronald Alexander not only pleaded guilty to drug distribution charges in 2021, but he also tried to use his position as a violence interrupter within the Safe Streets program to get out of a traffic stop with Baltimore police. And this is Ricky Evans. In his plea agreement from 2018, he told federal prosecutors that he was using the Safe Streets location he was working at as a meeting place for the Black Guerrilla family, or the BGF gang. Also detailed in those documents, he told prosecutors he used the same Safe Streets location as a place to stash his guns and drugs. And then we have Vernon Harper. We don't have a photo of him, but he again pleaded guilty to federal drug distribution charges in October of 2022. And again, while working for Safe Streets. Now, in this federal affidavit that we obtained from 2010, Harper's name comes up, and it's because of his possible BGF affiliations. Now, we'll take a closer look at what's in this entire document in a few days. Now, the FBI won't say much about the scope of their investigation involving some Safe Streets workers, but sources close to the probe tell us it's involving possible BGF affiliation. Now, we did get a lengthy statement from LifeBridge, the nonprofit running this Safe Streets site in particular. Here's what they said. Part of the statement from LifeBridge Health, there is no reason to initiate any other investigations. This warrant was isolated to a single employee, and the Bel-Air Edison site was his place of work. That was the focus of a search warrant. But we know that isn't true because the FBI executed 15 different search warrants, including David Caldwell. He's one of the Safe Streets workers that's now facing state-level charges because of an FBI raid. And 2 other Safe Streets workers also had federal agents show up at their house. And that's exactly why we've been asking questions of the mayor, Monzi, and the nonprofits running the Safe Streets locations. Questions like, will you release the names of the Safe Streets workers? When will you launch an investigation into all the Safe Streets sites? We'll continue to demand answers from city leaders to find out more information about how they're spending your tax dollars, and we're still digging for details about the latest FBI investigation into these Safe Streets workers and what could come next. At the Accountability Desk, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 News has been investigating the Safe Streets program for years now. You can find all of our previous reporting on our website at foxbaltimore.com.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look outside.
Well, we are seeing temperatures mainly in the 30s and the 40s, a couple spots in the 50s around our region. It was a near average day with temperatures in the upper 50s and low 60s around Maryland, but we are getting ready for a cooler end to the weekend, and you will notice that change tomorrow. We're looking at the low to mid 50s, cool for anyone heading to the Ravens game. Then for Monday, a nice warm up as we reach the upper 50s with plenty of sunshine. Still looking great on Tuesday with the low 60s. I'll let you know just how warm it continues to get coming up in my Weather Authority forecast. Back to you.
All right, Jasmine, thank you. You can access the latest information when that weather hits right on your cell phone. Just download the Fox 45 weather app. Just search for WBFF in your app store.
I'm Angela Brown in Washington, D.C., a nonprofit on a special mission to help service men and women. I'll tell you what you can do to help out.
Well, today, millions of Americans across the country honoring the brave men and women who have served our country. And this year, to honor men and women in uniform, we're highlighting programs helping service members.
Yeah, Angela Brown from the National Desk takes a look at a unique program in Montana.
The program is called Big Sky Bravery, and it's different because it focuses on active duty special operations forces. Jake Kaufman speaks for those who can't.
War is very gruesome, and you see and do things it's hard to fathom that you've done and you've seen. I spent 8 or 9 years being gone, about 300 days a year.
Kaufman, a retired Air Force pararescue man, survived brutal combat.
I got blown up by a couple grenades in 2013.
After retiring, Kaufman said he didn't want to be here anymore when someone recommended Big Sky Bravery.
We had a few recipients, unfortunately, say that they were suicidal before they came out, and after they had left Big Sky Bravery, they no longer want to hurt themselves.
First Sergeant retired Jeremy Keller is the Chief Strategy Officer for Big Sky Bravery in Montana after spending 17 years in special operations, serving in Afghanistan, 18 combat deployments, putting up mental walls to survive.
My ability to be a husband and a father was severely tarnished.
Watching Jeremy struggle inspired his brother-in-law, Josh McCain, to start Big Sky Bravery 8 years ago.
Start something for individuals who have sacrificed their entire life to defend our Constitution.
It's a week-long program for active duty special operation forces, allowing them to decompress through high adrenaline activities during the day.
Not only is that person going to help them learn how to ski and fly fish and all these other recreational things, they're more importantly going to show them that vulnerability is the key to success here.
Then at night, it gets personal, asking service members probing questions like this one.
What's troubling you in your life?
A mental and emotional restart for those still serving, witnessing the horrors of combat and carrying that burden with them.
Who we want them to be when they leave is just somebody who has hope.
And that was Angela Brown reporting. If you'd like to donate to Big Sky, you can scan the QR code right there on your screen. Your donations will go directly to helping them rest, decompress, and take their minds off combat as they come home.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10, an at-home rape kit banned in several other states, now facing controversy here in Maryland. Why the Attorney General says the company is making deceptive claims.
And we're getting ready for a cool but quiet night as temperatures drop to the upper 30s, keeping us near average. Tomorrow, we're looking at below average temperatures. I'll let you know what to expect as the weekend ends coming up in my full forecast.
Should survivors of sexual assault be able to gather their own evidence after the crime? It's a question Maryland lawmakers may soon consider.
This as a warning now coming from the Attorney General's office. Fox 45's Shannon Lilly investigates.
Over 50 years ago, the at-home pregnancy test created a lot of controversy, so we see ourselves in the same light.
It's being touted as an easy, innovative tool.
Most survivors aren't coming forward, and they're having to handle that without the support that they may need.
But inside this little box,
it says here, for survivors, by survivors.
A way for survivors of sexual assault to do the work typically cut out for a trained forensic nurse, collecting DNA instead from the comfort of their own home.
To go immediately to a hospital setting after being assaulted can be intimidating.
Leda Health COO Dr. Sean Bogle stopping by Fox 45 News back in August as he made the rounds, marketing Leda's early evidence kits around the state. His visit preceded by this press release sent to us from a PR agency called Flow Communications on the company's behalf. It claims a new state law rolling out in October would allow for these so-called do-it-yourself kits to be used as evidence and administered by healthcare professionals.
The bill makes it very clear that at-home kits can be acknowledged in a court setting as a piece of a medical record.
But those are misleading claims, according to the very senator sponsoring the bill.
Senator Hettleman with two bills now.
We are not giving our blessing to them. We are at the point where we're considering how and if they should be available in Maryland. I have concerns about how the company is representing itself.
And she's not the first to raise red flags.
Before you is House Bill 1564.
Clear across country to the opposite coast, a battle playing out in a February Washington House committee hearing.
There is no good reason to make a survivor of sexual assault pay to unknowingly prevent the justice in their case.
We do not sell directly to consumers or victims. We present an additive option.
That additional option, though, brimming with glaring problems, according to Washington state leaders and attorneys.
There are acceptable standards for evidence collection and evidence handling, and these kits do not meet the mark.
Just imagine you take your own rape test kit evidence and then you go take a shower. And then you find out that the evidence that you collected in your room will never make it to trial.
Washington State Representative Gina Mossbrucker forging the bill to ban at-home kits in her state. That bill passing and signed into Washington state law in May, but not without a fight.
But when we got to the Senate, the lobbyist was waiting for every legislator before every meeting out of their office to try to convince them to vote against banning it. I've been a legislator 10 years next year. I've never seen that.
Months prior, this cease and desist letter issued by the Washington Attorney General's office accuses Leda Health of deceptive practices and preying on a vulnerable population. And the more we look, the more we find. Here, cease and desist letters and warnings stacking up in states across the country for Me Too kits. It was the company's original name before rebranding to Leda Health. And that brings us back to Maryland, where Fox 45 News is now uncovering this letter circling from the Maryland Attorney General's office. The office confirming to us the letter was sent in August to hospitals, universities, and other agencies, warning them of multiple and repeated reports that at least one manufacturer has been making false and misleading statements in promotion of their self-administered collection kits. The Attorney General not confirming Leda Health is that manufacturer when we questioned, but claims like the one sent to us in this press release, indicating the kits could be authorized and administered in the state and used as evidence come October 1st, deemed false in the AG's letter.
To in any way apply that this is going to be admissible in court, I think is very misleading.
Baltimore County State's Attorney Scott Schellenberger warned against at-home kits back in 2019. He didn't believe the kits would be a pathway to justice then, and tells me the same is true now. At issue?
We document the chain of custody of exactly when it was taken, who had it, and the next person to touch it.
the lacking chain of custody needed for prosecution, and the inability for a survivor to submit the DNA they've collected into the National Criminal Database called CODIS.
If you're sexually assaulted by somebody you didn't know and you use an at-home kit, that kit and the test you do, even if we get DNA off of it, will not be admissible in the CODIS system. And that means we may never find the person who sexually assaulted you.
Schellenberger serves on the Sexual Assault Evidence Kit Committee. It's a group of police, prosecutors, nurses now tasked with looking into these at-home kits and providing recommendations to the legislature come December as directed by Senate Bill 789. I asked Schellenberger if a ban like that in Washington could be in the cards for Maryland.
That could definitely be a possibility in the legislature.
Do you think it needs to be?
Let's see how this plays out.
Meanwhile, Lita Health maintains it is not a medical care provider and encourages survivors to seek professional care.
Simply looking for DNA. So it's not intended to give a survivor false hope or be a silver bullet.
Shannon Lilly, Fox 45 News.
In a statement sent to Fox 45, Lita Health is responding to the criticism, saying that they will work hand in hand with politicians, nonprofits, and regulators to ensure that all survivors are heard. We've posted their full statement on our website, foxbaltimore.com. Just look for this story. And in the meantime, the deadline approaches for the Sexual Assault Evidence Kit Committee to make a recommendation on to Maryland lawmakers on these at-home kits. That recommendation is due December 1st.
And making headlines across the country, Seattle could see a dramatic swing with its city council when it comes to public safety. It's something the city's business community is watching closely because of ongoing issues of theft, drug use, and homelessness. Jeremy Harris from our station in Seattle has that story.
3rd and Pike has long been the intersection of Seattle's most pressing issues.
It's rough.
Drug use, mental health.
At night, it'll be outrageous down here.
And violent crime.
You can't have people bashing each other to death with poles and sticks.
Ben Gant sees it all from his stand on the corner, where today they are installing new fencing around known spots for drug users.
You're giving Narcan to people regularly.
Oh, yeah, we hawk it like newspapers down here.
The mayor has pledged to clean up 3rd Avenue since taking office. Now it looks like he'll have a new city council more aligned with his public safety agenda. Early results show Rob Saka and Joy Hollingsworth with comfortable leads. Both ran campaigns to address public drug use and crime. So did candidate Bob Kettle, who has a 7-point lead over incumbent Andrew Lewis.
It's important that voters understand that this is not going to be a flip the switch on January and all our problems go away.
Aaron Goodman with the Soto Business Improvement Area says Seattle's business community is hoping for an overhaul of the council.
You've been critical of how the current council has handled public safety in the city.
Our businesses are victimized on a regular basis, and this council has largely looked at property crimes as not really an issue.
But theft, drug use, and street crime are what small business owners like Layla Farange say need to be priority 1 for the new council.
Do you think they'll actually be able to make a material difference?
Yes, I'm very hopeful. When the mayor came in, he said he's going to clean up. He did. And with the leadership of Mr. Mayor and the new council, hopefully we're going to get a new Seattle.
King County elections officials tell us they anticipate releasing more ballots tomorrow. That could decide the fate of several of the key city council races here in Seattle. Seattle's mayor says he's watching these races closely, and he looks forward to working with that new council on the issues of public safety and homelessness.
And the drug epidemic isn't limited to just Seattle. Our political insider, Armstrong Williams, sent us this clip of a person doing drugs right out in the open in Washington, D.C.
Hello? What are you smoking? Is that crack? Crack.
It's not legalized.
But you're getting high. You're smoking crack. I'm going to tell you something. 15 years ago, this would have never been possible. Someone could sit outside the White House grounds and smoke crack and just sit there as comfortable as